Hi everyone. So what I wanted to kind of discuss, because I know a lot of people get a little crunchy about the final project, is I just wanted to go ahead and give you a little brief rundown of how this is going to work. What is okay? What is not okay? Basically, the answer is almost anything is okay, and I'm going to show you how to earn points for your final project. So for your final project, you're going to describe or relate the evolutionary history of something. And so that something is really up to you, but has a lot to do with probably what you're doing in the future. Are you going to become a dentist and you want to talk about the evolutionary history of bacteria living inside of a human's mouth? Or are you studying lizards and you want to look at the relationship of coloration and speciation, or something like that? I can help you develop these questions if you can start kind of thinking about broad topics. One thing that is different from other final projects that you've been doing, probably in other courses, is this final project is an unessay, meaning you're not going to write a paper about this. There's not page links. There's not anything like that regarding this project. This project is for you to relate or demonstrate the evolutionary history of something. That's its goal. Okay, so when you are picking your project or your topic for your project, you're going to kind of think about a few questions. So let's look at this document that's up currently. I have questions over here. So if you can answer these questions, you know you've done the background research to create your unessay. So at this point you're used to me, but in a very classic Dr. Frederick style, the first question is, what questions can we ask? Because the cool thing about evolutionary biology is you don't know anything until we figure out what we don't know. So you can't study the evolutionary history of something if you don't have a grip on what that something is and where there's parts missing. So what questions can we ask? So if this is the cavity or the bacteria inside of a human's mouth, you can say, what types of bacteria cause cavities? How does the relationship of a human's diet and affect the evolutionary history, or of a population's diet affect the evolutionary history of the bacteria living inside of the mouths of those people? Something like that. And so you're going to come across, while you're looking at a topic and you're trying to do research, all of this stuff that you can't figure out. That's really the second question. What do you need to better understand? There's always, the answer is more taxa or more data. These are often, if you're an evolutionary biologist and you do phylogenetics, it's like, oh, maybe if we added more sequences, this would be better. Or maybe if we added these other species or this other continent or this other type of environment, we would have better data. So that's always part of it. So one thing that I kind of want you to touch on or think about is, what do we need to understand this better? We've talked about mechanisms. So you're thinking something about like drift or selection or various forms of selection. A lot of times if you're talking about something that's living on an island, clearly you're going to be drift associated. The population of bacteria inside a person and inside a group of people, inside the mouths of a group of people, is going to have a lot to do with drift. But then there's things like, if you're studying coloration in dogs, that's going to have a lot more to do with artificial selection. So if we've gone over WIPO at this point, probably when you're watching this. If not, we're going to get there. The WIPO is this, like, what is the whale related to? How do we show that? How do we know? And there's this missing ankle fossil. So like, we think whales are most closely related to hippos, but we can't find physical evidence of that, and that's going to happen a lot. And then how does this knowledge apply to the future? You're going to touch on that again in your end of interview, your exit interview, if you will. But just kind of relate this to where you're going and what you're doing. So if you can answer these questions, you're ready for your unessay. You're ready to do it. Your unessay can be either research heavy or data heavy. This is the background content that you're going to turn in. I'm going to show you the options, or many various options, and it's kind of unlimited of what you can turn in. Okay, so you have two routes. You can pick something that is really research based. This is good for those of us who aren't super friendly with R at this point, or I don't know, find this faster. I personally would go data heavy, but if you want to go lit review heavy, then by all means. This is a good time to break out those reading journals. So you have your one that for the papers that we've done in class, but you might have another one so you can compile all of your information for this final paper. So in that research heavy one, you only need to find 5 taxa in CBI to use to make a phylogeny. That phylogeny will be related in some way in your unessay. For the computational heavy one, I'm looking for data sets that are like 15 things or larger. What you want to do for the data heavy one is find a data set that somebody's already published. That's the good news, is we have to publish these when we publish our data. So you might need a little help finding that, but I can probably help you. I would, however, somewhat limit it because now we can have these huge data sets, but that takes running time. And you don't necessarily have the computational power to complete those runs. But the good news is you have to talk to me through various steps of this. So you'll have plenty of places where I can be like, ooh, let's steer it this way, or let's add or subtract these taxa, something like that. Okay, so your assignment is to relate the evolutionary history of an organism, right? So you're either demonstrating it, sorry, I was using the wrong mouse, demonstrating it here in the top choice, which is the lit review heavy one, or you're estimating it here, which is where you're going to take a bunch of data and actually build a more rigorous phylogeny and maybe do something with that phylogeny. Okay, so the rubric. Let me show you some examples first, and I will tell you, I didn't invent this unessay thing. It is awesome, and I am borrowing heavily from other instructors that have worked this out in the past. We have had some people turn in unessays for this class from last semester, but I find that as biologists, sometimes we're a little weary. So I wanted to show you a whole Twitter feed of examples from an evolutionary biology college level course. So these people, this is Dr. Kathy Newman. Her unessays were based on a concept. So this would be like drift or sexual selection, or you'll see as we go through. This one is about sexual selection and parental care. This one is clearly an excellent model of drift. So we have all of these, I don't know if this will be bigger. Yeah, that's better. So we have all of these great examples from her. I mean, clearly you can't copy them. Oh, I thought this would, nope. But this kind of gives you an idea. This is a video. So use your skills that you already have, the things you already like to do. If you already like to write, then write. But you could do creative writing, you could write a blog, you could write a newspaper, you could write something that I can use for classes in the future, any of those things. BuzzFeed articles, type things, lists. this is a very scary thing that yeah, that's terrifying. Cross stitches, whatever, I'm in. Make it something that's doable in your time frame. Don't forget to know enough about the content to answer these questions. So this is, you really get to do whatever you want, okay? Another example, so Dr. Kathy Newman got this assignment, or the rubrics for this assignment, from Dr. Elizabeth Sargent. She's kind of the one on Twitter that's been spearheading this whole idea. She releases all of her content. It's super nice because then we can talk about it more, like troubleshoot it, what is happening. So one of the problems is you get all of this stuff because maybe you guys all make something. So some things we have to talk about are, do I have permission to photograph it? Can I put it up? Can I use it for future semesters? Do you want this back? All of those things, but we'll talk about those later. A lot of people also do podcasts or recordings. We've had some of those. That's excellent. If that's what you want to do, if that's what you're good at, great. So shout out to Dr. Elizabeth Sargent, who always gets me so excited about this, and then she makes a lot of gifts. All of these things are great. Okay, so you're thinking, how do we get points? How do I assess if you've actually completed the task? And so the best way, Dr. Emily Suzanne Clark it's not a scientist, but she does this in like history and religion courses. So there is a link so you can kind of get the theory behind it. One of the major aspects for me is I'm not great at writing papers. I hate it. It's torture. I'm never 100% sure that I've completed the task. But I do understand evolutionary history, and I have done things in the past where I can relate that evolutionary history to interesting topics. I actually did one of these unessays when I was in graduate school 40 bajillion years ago, and I made a quilt about the bacteria living in my shower. It was fungus, but whatever. Okay, so here is her blog post that kind of explains it in case you're like, what is this woman making up? Here is a blog post that kind of takes all of that information, uses it again, which is, something. But I liked this. He kind of summarized some important topics, such as, how are you going to be evaluated? It has to be both compelling and effective. Now, that's not different from if you were writing a paper. I don't just want some like gobbledygook that I have to read so that I can give you a grade, right? It needs to be compelling, it needs to be interesting, and it needs to be effective. The effective is, can it answer those questions that I kind of brought up? Do you know enough about the topic that you're relating, right? The compelling is it interesting? Have you taken a new approach? Does this approach fit the content that you're relating to me, right? So sometimes you can get really hooked on an idea, but it's not actually the assignment. So this is just like any other rubric. I've kind of broken it down here. So an A on essay has critical and active engagement. So you're creatively demonstrating the evolutionary history of whatever your topic is, right? And then so you can read through this and get kind of a better idea. But if basically anything that we've agreed upon, you're going to be great. It's going to work perfectly. If it's something that we haven't agreed upon, that's when you're going to fall down into this lower category, unwanted category, if you will. You're going to be unhappy with your grade if we haven't discussed it. If I haven't cleared you for topic, content, data, then that's going to be kind of a problem. The reason why I do that and why I care what your topic is or what your data is. Basically, it's to troubleshoot for you. I spend a lot of time at these last few weeks of the semester when you're doing these assignments looking for data sets that are better, looking for interesting papers that you can easily fall into your evaluation or your assignment. So I'm spending a lot of time on this also to make it easier for you to complete. So I like there to be these deadlines so that you haven't spent a lot of time doing something that you're not going to get points for because it didn't answer the questions or because it doesn't actually give me the evolutionary history of your system or something like that. Okay, so this will all be up. You'll have this Word document that is the assignment. You'll have on your calendar, which I have right here, deadlines for when these projects are due. But the first kind of in week 5, you'll pick your topic. You can pick it early. You can start this whenever. If you're going to cross stitch, I don't know if you're as slow as I am, but you better start now. Pick something that you can do that you'll be doing anyway, right? Something that you enjoy. Maybe you like to act. Maybe you like to make memes. I love memes, but I'm not doing that. Okay, so in week 5, you'll pick your topic. In week 6, you'll either turn into me kind of your data plan or your lit review plan, depending on which one is more time consuming. Week 7, you're going to do the other one. So this will be either the data or a lit check-in, whichever one you haven't done already. And then you turn this in as I need them on the 31st because that's the last day. That's like finals day. So you can turn, if it is a physical thing, you can turn it into me at my building. If it is anything you can turn in electronically, you'll upload it in the assignment blog. That's great. I prefer anything you could turn in electronically, but physical is also fabulous. I understand that maybe you're picking something that you need to actually give to me. On the 31st, I will be in my office to collect them, and you can leave them outside my office. If you have questions about turning them in during one of those check-in times, we can work on that. Also, if it's something that you need to record, we can set up either in Blackboard Collaborate for you to record or in, I can show you how to record in PowerPoint or whatever way you want to do that. Okay. So again, this is really jumping the gun because you're not working on this or this isn't due until the very end of the semester. But I know a lot of people get really antsy about the Unessay and they feel kind of like I've sprung it on them. I'm not springing this on you. You'll have a solid week of basically no other assignments besides this where you'll just be watching some lectures and whatnot. So I think you'll have plenty of time as long as you have this planned, like you know what you're going to do. Okay. As always, if you have questions, just shoot them to me. I will start a discussion board for questions about the Unessay as soon as the semester starts, so you can plop them in there and then everybody can see them because everybody is going to have the same questions or similar questions. That way you can help each other out. Great. See you soon.